Welcome to another edition of Disability and You. I'm Ganesh Singh. On this edition, I will be discussing the importance of the white cane to the mobility and independence of persons who are blind and visually impaired. Joining me is Julie Lewis and Leroy Phillips, both of whom are persons that can be considered individuals living with a vision disability. Some persons might say blind, some might say visually impaired. So for this, the purpose of this program, and as an advocate, I'll use the term blind. I hope Julie and Leroy, they're both okay with that.
Very comfortable with it.
Julie, let's start with you. You've been someone using your cane for a number of years. I wouldn't say all your life. Tell us how important the white cane is to you as someone who's blind.
Extremely important. It's part of me, I would say. And even though you haven't said all my life, I have not been using it all my life because my parents would not have permitted it. Because back in the day, and I think it still applies to today, your family sort of discouraged you from using the cane. They would say things like, they never saw young women with cane. They never saw young girls with cane. So I went to school without using the cane. Throughout school, both for secondary, CXC and A-levels, I had to be taken to classes. It used to bother me, especially when I was in the sixth form, because you had to sit there and wait until someone came for you. Even when I started working in the initial years, my family insisted on taking me to work until I took matters into my own hands. And the rest, as they say, is history.
But that's so important, the point that you brought out, Julie. People basically telling you that don't use the cane. It doesn't look good. But going back to how important it is to you as a blind person.
Well, like I just said, it's extremely important. It's part of my life. It's part of me. It's like an extension of my limbs, I would say. I am very uncomfortable when I don't have my cane. I don't like people leading me. I remember
and
once...
I'm sure most blind persons share the same view.
With independent blind people.
The independent ones. And I have a feeling that our numbers are dwindling. They were never very great in the first place, but I think they're dwindling now for a number of reasons. But once you are used to the cane, it becomes a part of you. It is extremely important to you. You're lost without it.
That's so true. Leroy, what about you? How important is the cane to you?
Yeah, it's very important. I would like to say my cane is very much a part of me. I can't leave my house with it. I feel like it's like an accessory to what I wear or dress up with to get out of the house on a daily basis. It's just like breathing in and breathing out. You just can't do without it. So it's particularly important, and I really hope that many young blind persons, even the older ones, are getting into the habit of using their white canes to get about, to be more independent. And Julie mentioned something, it's in my head, that the usage of the cane is dwindling now. I really hope that's not the case, but Ganesh, you'd perhaps be better able to tell us about the distribution of white canes in our country in recent years.
Just let me clarify. It's not that there aren't people with canes, but I know most of those people use their canes in their bags or under their arms, but never extended.
Julie, that's an excellent point, because I was just going to answer Leroy to say that hundreds of canes have been distributed to persons who are blind.
Right.
But most of those persons, they are, it's like a decoration. Some persons probably got 2 or 3 canes in their homes, in their bags, in their, probably backpack, whatever it is. But that's it. It's not used. But Julie, if you want to elaborate a bit more on the uses, how does it make you independent? Yes, it's something you can't do without, but explain the usage of the cane so that the listeners, the general public can have an understanding. of
Now,
how blind persons use this cane?
for a sighted person, you want to go anywhere, you just get up and you're gone, right? You jump in your car. Well, we can't jump in the driver's seat of the car and drive the car, but you get the point I'm getting at. You can go anywhere without even giving it a thought. For someone who is blind and do not have a cane, let me do it in the back door sort of way. You do not have a cane. You really can't go anywhere like that. You might have the desire to go somewhere, but unless you have what we would call a sighted guide, or that is someone to take you, you simply cannot go anywhere. So some people can't even get around their yards by themselves
Yeah,
because
so
they
true.
don't know the area. With the cane, that all changes. I could get up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going for a walk around the neighborhood, or I'm going to the market or the supermarket, and I could just take up my cane and go get a bus. And if there's no bus or if it's walking distance, I simply go. And that's what the cane does for you. It gives you that level of independence that you would not otherwise have. And lots of people become timid or maybe even outright afraid to go anywhere, to venture anywhere, simply because they do not have the cane. For me, it's what the Americans
So
might say. It's
what other than making you independent, what the cane does when you walk on the street with the cane in your hands, what do you really do with the
with the cane.
piece of equipment? Yes.
Well, you use it to inform you of your surroundings. You use it to let you know, hey, there's a wall here, there's a gutter there. Granted, it's not perfect. You do get into accidents. I've had a number of encounters.
Things have
Like
so much
sometimes
like
we
people.
say, we say sometimes, if for a blind person falling into a gutter is a way of getting baptized into being blind. So
That is so true.
those things do happen. But by and large, the cane does give you a very good indication of where you are, things to avoid, and so that is why it's important, because it does enable you to find your way wherever you want to go.
Can we describe it as an external eye?
I usually call it that. I,
Because that's what
external
you
eye.
use as your eye as a blind person.
Yes.
Yes, it's an
Exactly.
It's
external
used as your
eye.
eyes.
I usually leave my eye alone.
But Leroy, anything to add with what Julie would have said? How she used the cane is used.
Yeah, well, I don't think I can add much to that because basically this is basically your external eye that helps you identify surfaces, the difference in surfaces or locations, takes you from point A to point B. It just gives you that great sense of independence. And when Jude was talking about independence earlier, I wanted to pair it up with another word, freedom. Just imagine you're at home, trapped, no one is there. You always depend on a sighted guide to go here or there. You feel trapped like a caged animal. So I think freedom is what this cane really gives you as a blind person. Freedom, independence.
Yeah, because Julie would have mentioned earlier, just sitting in the classroom waiting for someone to come and pick her up.
Frustrating.
But if she was allowed to use the cane at that time, she just get up like she does now and move. And that is what it does for most blind persons. But Julie, why do you think the number of persons who are using the cane, although there is the availability of canes and there is some level of training, why do you think many persons are reluctant to use the cane?
That's a big question.
I think it has a lot to do, some habits don't change, some cultures maybe don't change as quickly as we would like. So that culture of our family and friends instilling in us, man, you don't need no cane, man, you got me. Cane is not something that, especially when you're young, that you just see young people using, and then for a woman, young women and girls don't use cane, so they put these sort of fear and intimidation and maybe instill in you a false sense of pride as well, that I
That's
don't
the
have
big
to
word,
use a
pride.
cane.
Yeah.
I don't have to use a cane.
Yeah.
I have a sighted guy anywhere I want to go. My family will take me, which is not true, of course, we all know. They don't always take you everywhere you want to go, right, Ganesh?
That's true.
Sometimes you want to go somewhere that you wouldn't want your family to take you anyway. So
But Leroy would have mentioned freedom. You want to be
Yes,
independent. You want
exactly.
to do things on your own.
precisely.
But you know, you talk about pride, you know, Ganesh and Julie. I remember I never started using the cane until 2008. And I remember there was a young lady who came from IKEA again, I think it was, Miss Maureen. I don't know how many, if you
Maureen
both
Williams.
remember her, right? Maureen Williams. She came at the unit for the blind, that's the school I was attending at the time, and taught us exactly how to use the cane effectively, using your wrist correctly and those things. And I was like, oh my word, I've been using it wrong all the time. That's why I never really venture out the class doors or the classrooms with the cane or even my home. So after that very good day, that fateful day when she taught me how to use the cane effectively, I remember the next day after, I didn't have that pride anymore. I accepted being blind, and I had to fight that battle with my grandmother and tell her that school morning that, hey, I'm going to school on my own. It wasn't an easy fight, but many of my blind friends would have shared that same experience. Fighting with your family members.
right.
Say, I can do it. I finally gained that independence, that confidence that I need to go out there and move alone.
But Ganesh, to the
Yeah,
point,
go ahead.
to add to the question that you asked about why people aren't using the cane, there's so many factors. And one of the major factors I have to confess is our roads aren't very blind friendly
Oh,
these
yeah.
days.
But that's what we're gonna get into.
But that's one of the reasons why it's not being
Yeah.
used.
But I wanted to get out the pride issue, and I'll, venture to share a bit, which I really don't like doing, being the moderator. But I'll share my experience, and Julie would have mentioned this pride. I was there.
We all were,
Yeah, and I was reluctant to use the cane, as Julie mentioned. Is people they mostly in their bags? That's where my cane was, always in my bag. And there was an instance where I went to a restaurant with another blind friend, and she was like, "We're not going in there until you take that cane out of your bag." And we stood there for like 5-10 minutes, and then there's like, you know what? I'll take it out. And from then on, I've been using the cane quite efficiently. I'm not one that walks the streets for many reasons, like we will discuss later on. But it's part of me. I can't go anywhere without the cane. You feel like something is missing.
Yep.
You feel because it's like how some persons can't go without their car keys or their
Or the
cell
cell
phones.
phones, correct.
Right.
The same thing for us. When that cane is not with us,
You're
we're
like a
lost.
fish out of water.
Definitely. Julie, you touched briefly on one of the reasons why persons do not use their cane, and that is the inaccessibility of our built environment. Elaborate a bit more on some of the challenges. You're one that travel Georgetown or traverse around the streets of Georgetown regularly. Tell us some of the challenges you encounter.
Okay, without wanting to stay here until next week talking about that, let me just summarize. The roads, inclusive of pavements and sidewalks, they have become so unfriendly to people who are blind. Why? Apart from their potholes, and I could share at this juncture an experience I had with a pothole the other day. I am walking in my street, and this pothole sprung up. I have to say sprung up because
It wasn't
there
always
before.
Yeah.
At least I didn't notice it before. But I'm making the turn from my street into another street, and the next thing, my leg dropped into this hole.
Oh boy.
That could be so dangerous.
It is.
That could cause
Another
youths-
disability?
Exactly.
Yes.
And people take these things for granted. About 4 weeks ago, I actually fell because I was wearing a heel and my foot slipped into one of them and I actually fell on my knees, right? All because of these potholes, all because the corners, not just the potholes, but the corners are so uneven. The pavements, once upon a time, they used to be flat. Now pavements are not flat because I understand people are trying to protect their premises from getting
Flooded and
flooded
so on.
with when there's
But that's
excess
where the
rain.
relevant authorities should come and put some
Something, build the
guidelines in
pavements
place.
higher or
Yeah,
something.
to direct how they lift their floors or their pavements in
Yes,
front
or
of their
maybe some of them
businesses.
are not steep, but some of them are very steep.
Yeah.
Some of them have the nice little slope that you could go up easily, but some of them it's you if you're not careful you could stab your toe into them. And if you when you're coming down, you could have that sudden jerk again. Right? Then apart from that, I guess because we have so many cars now, so many vehicles, they're parked just anywhere and everywhere. So even on the pavement, some of them are parked. So you're walking on the pavement, feeling that sense of confidence that, oh, I'm on the pavement. Bam, you're into some vehicle because it's there. And like I said, the cane is very good. It's absolutely necessary, but it's not perfect. And sometimes it can miss things.
Definitely.
So you bump into a pavement, you can again injure yourself like that, especially if it's like a truck or something that is
Because the
very
cane
high.
will help you to identify objects at the below at the lower
Yes,
level.
but definitely not when they're high and have a protruding tray
Yeah.
or that sort of thing. You can hurt yourself.
Because you
Like
can't walk with a cane in the ear.
No, not at all.
no, no, you certainly can't.
Exactly.
And those are just some of the reasons why the roads are so dangerous for us. They can injure us. They can cause you to fall.
And what about, well, I'll just ask Leroy to share his thoughts on that. Leroy, in addition to what Julie would have said, some of the challenges, are there any different challenges that you would have encountered or
Yeah.
you would have heard about from your other colleagues?
What happens is a lot of vendors are on the pavement. Yeah, so the usual width of a pavement, is lessened when you have vendors occupying those spaces, which gives you a greater challenge as a blind person to navigate. And what happens, so Julie talked about those potholes. Lots of manholes in the city, are left opened. And if we have vendors occupying the safer half of those pavements, you have the only option not to walk in the dangerous part
And-
of the pavement, risk falling over into those manholes and off high edges and those kind of things. So that's a very big one too.
That's a huge
And most
one.
times the vendors are to the
The safer side.
wall, the safer side. You gotta walk close to the gutter.
Look, let me give you an experience because as I walk the road so often, I guess
So many
I
experiences.
encounter so
No,
many.
as I told you, when we did the preliminary interview, I mentioned that you're probably the most mobile blind person. But go ahead.
Yes, I was. I think they call that street. No, that's Water Street. Yes, I was in Water Street the other day, just going to one of the supermarkets there. And I was told to walk on the road because the pavement was literally taken over by the vendors on both sides of the pavement. So it was just a narrow little space for you to walk. And of course, when you walk into the vendors and to the trays, and that's another story.
Julie, just before you go on, I just want to interrupt your point there. Persons, I just want you to perhaps include it in your answer to Ganesh's question, that using the cane requires some amount of space to swing left and right, and not just
To get the
width of your
clearance.
body.
Yes, to get
the
the
wider
clearance.
you get to swing,
The better it is
for
for
you.
you. Absolutely.
You can go on, Julie. Sorry for
Absolutely.
interrupting.
That's a sort of, yes, that's it. That's in terms of using the cane. You have to swing it from side to side. And so it does require some amount of space so that you can walk freely. And that's to the point, actually, Leroy, because I was made to walk on the road, and I'm sure about 5 cars, their mirrors grazed me as I was walking.
Yes, because it's so
I was
congested.
so close to the traffic. Because even on the road there were vendors and trays, and so you're trying to avoid them, you stepping more and more into the traffic. So some cars literally struck me, their mirrors, as I was walking.
But you're fortunate because if they were going faster,
Well, you see, that's a great thing.
because
about them.
sometimes they do.
Yes, they do. But because the road is so congested and busy, I guess they can't go too fast. So but it really is a dangerous thing. And I said to myself, you know what, I'll have to reevaluate my coming into this area here. Maybe find another
No, but you
route.
should not.
You should not have to.
I
You
know,
should not
I
have
know,
to.
but
Yeah.
because things are
For your
becoming
own
so
safety.
out of hand.
But why do you think, well, let's not get there, but let's look at what can be done. What can be done to make not just Georgetown, but we have a lot of a lot of construction, let's put it that way.
Right.
A lot of infrastructural development. What can be done to ensure that whatever facilities, whatever roadways are constructed are accessible for persons who are blind?
Yeah, I think we need to examine
And modifications to existing
building regulations, maybe.
structures.
Well, some things will have to be put into law, I guess, and enforced that way. Maybe more blind persons need to come out and make
Speak up.
the statement, advocate is a nice word we use, but let people know that, this status quo cannot be maintained. But you see, with so few of us using the roads, we become lost in the whole crowd of all kinds of things that people, the government and private sector and everybody else is dealing with. So we need a greater presence of persons with disabilities, but then at the same time, families are not going to want their loved ones to
come
venture
out,
out
yeah.
in that chaos.
Yeah.
I have to call it chaos. For fear of them getting into accident. Because I suppose I could navigate it a little better than some because of my years of experience with using the road. But for someone venturing out now for the first time, or not doing it very often, it's going to tell on them. It's going to take a lot out of them, and they probably, unless they were like me, the more difficulties you encounter, the more determined you were to overcome them.
Right.
Some people are going to say, this is too much, and so they're going to back away from it.
Ganesh, if you can permit
Go
me
ahead.
to add another factor that really exacerbates the independent movement of blind people, and I know you both will jump up at this one. Given the fact that we can't navigate it so easily with, there being high and low pavements and vendors occupying those spaces, guess what? The noise pollution makes it far worse when you have push carts playing music, buses playing lots of loud music, cars. It just makes it really terrible, even, so bad that you might just not want to come out there and walk at all.
And this is going to the point of the cane not being too perfect. Because once you're disoriented, as Leroy is getting at there.
Yeah, because once there's noise, you're lost.
Yes.
Yes.
You're
As a
extra
blind person,
blind.
you're lost.
You're blind twice once there's noise.
And people ask you, but why is make so much a fuss about the noise? It's because it disorients you. I think I was explaining to Leroy the other day that I think it has to do with the fact that our ability to be balanced and to have equilibrium and so is in our ears.
Yes.
Definitely.
So when the noise is too much, it disturbs that. So it leaves us
And
very lost. As
And
Leroy said.
added to that is our ears. It's part of our eyes technically as a blind person.
So
We
true.
use our ears, our eyes, to be aware, spatial awareness. And once we lose the use of our ears, then we're lost. The cane would help us to know where we are, but still we would not be certain. And every time I venture in that downtown Georgetown area on my own, I get very scared and fearful because I normally would walk, let's say on Avenue Republic, go into Rob Street, and it's pretty decent. Of recent, there's always a push cart at the head of
So
Rob
true.
and Avenue Republic. And, it's like, so what can City Council, the Mayor City Council, what can they do? Quickly, Leroy,
Yeah, I think
to help with some of these.
Right, you need to consult with the blind community, especially because you need to collect recommendations from that particular group of people, and then perhaps have a strong relationship or working one with the Ministry of Works and perhaps the Ministry of Housing to some extent, to have systems be put in place to ensure
What
that.
systems?
Yes, so we need proper pavements. We do need, we've emphasized
Uniform
that throughout,
pavements, so one
uniformed ones. So they're tactiles, you can add to the pavements or the sidewalk so that when you use your cane, you can know when you're heading toward the end or you're coming to the beginning of a pavement. So you would make the necessary adjustments.
What about crossing the road? You know, we did not.
Touch it,
Just-
not at all. I notice we have some traffic lights in the city these days, Ganesh, making some beeping sound. I haven't tried using them independently because I know.
But that's one way. I know the Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Juan Edgil, that is something he would have personally advocated for within his ministry. I think it was early 2001. Sorry, 2021, at some of the busy intersections that blind person would traverse on Avenue Republic close to High Street area. So, as you said, you've never used it, but Julie, have you encountered those and how helpful are they?
I have not relied on the traffic lights to
The beepers.
to
Yeah.
indicate, well, the beepers, right, to
Yeah.
indicate when I should go or not. To tell you the truth,
Because some people, although it's in glow, some people will still.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
What
Yeah,
I
we
do,
saw-
And they'll pull you along with them.
what I do is just property is definitely not recommended, and
No, we shouldn't.
I've been tried it for it anyway. When I get to a junction and I hear it's clear, whether the light is saying red, green, or orange, I am gone. So that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I
It's
do the
probably not
same too.
recommended.
But are persons helpful?
Very much.
Very much. Let's be. We don't live in a perfect world, so there are people who will pass you on the road, especially people in groups. But you do get help from. It goes across the spectrum. The age I find doesn't really matter. I've had children cross me, children accompany me, teenagers, adults, elderly people.
Yep.
I've even had some mentally ill persons. I must admit, I didn't realize that they were
But they
mentally
know
ill.
that
But
you need help and they would have
that they
given it.
understood, even in their state of mind, they still
They
understand.
understood you
you
needed
know.
help. So we established that the Mayor and City Council, they can ensure that pavements are uniform.
It's not just, well, let me tell you, I don't know who is making these roads now in the city, but the pavements are very high.
Very, very.
And it's not just Georgetown, but the pavements are extremely high. So if you have a problem,
But there
with
should be
your
a slope at the end, a curb
There
cut.
should be. Well, there is one by me, and it has a slope and it has a part where you can just step off, which I thought was very good. The problem I have with it, it's like cobbled, and I don't think they did a very good job of cobbling it, so it's very rough. And that sometimes can be a little disconcerting as well. You know, when the
Yeah.
pavement is a bit rough, it helps to destroy your cane, that's the first thing.
Definitely. But Julie, Leroy, I want to thank you both very much for sharing. Very, very good information. And let's hope that the relevant authorities are going to pay heed to what was said, and we will see significant changes around the city to start with, and the new infrastructure that we're seeing all over the place, that they're accessible for persons who are blind. Everyone should be independent or should be allowed to be independent, and blind persons are no different. And the cane is our eyes. We don't use guide dogs here in Guyana.
No, we
And that's a whole other program.
I wonder how that would be.
But exactly. But the cane is basically a blind person's eyes. So I want to thank you both very much once again. And I trust that we will see significant changes in the not too distant future in making our built environment more accessible for persons who are blind and visually impaired. Thank you very much.